Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, or for tuning in afterwards if you're watching this as a recording. For those of you who are new to Evika webinars, our mission is to create free and accessible education for people living with disabilities or those who care for them. So our intention here is to make sure that everybody has the tools and strategies and information that they need in order to live happy and enjoyable lives, no matter the situation. So today we have a couple of great guests, and our topic is taking care of yourself as a parent of a child with complex needs. So self-care is a very important topic. We've heard a lot about it from within our network and within all the people that we often interact with in this area. Yep, the agenda is good. So what we're going to be going over today is, first of all, we're just going to say welcome and thank you to everyone and our sponsors for allowing us to put this on. Ivana is going to walk us through her journey for 20 minutes, and then Gunjan, who's joining us as well, is going to walk us through hers. And along the way, we're going to discuss, what they went through, some of the tips and strategies that really benefited them in terms of experiencing self-care and caring for themselves along the journey of caring for their children as well. After that, we're going to take a little 2-minute break, a little commercial from our sponsors, while people fill up our question and answer window, and we'll get to those towards the end before wrapping up. So again, before we get started here, just thank you to Control Bionics. So Control Bionics is a provider of advanced communication technologies for those who have lost their voice by way of disability. We'll show a little commercial for it towards the end. But it's a phenomenal technology, and we couldn't put on our series of webinars without their support. So I certainly encourage everyone to take a look at Control Bionics and what they have to offer, and see if it's something that might be beneficial in their lives as well. I also want to thank Holland Bloorview. I know Ivana and Gunjan are affiliated with the Family Advisory Program for Holland Bloorview. And we really appreciate working alongside the organization, having them give us access to such phenomenal leaders in the community and in the space, who we can all benefit from listening to. Maybe next slide. Ivana, I think I'm going to let you introduce yourself and maybe tell your story here as you get started, and Gunjan, maybe you'll do yours as you. I don't think I can do it justice, so I'll leave it to you to introduce yourselves as we go here.
Sure. So yes, hi everyone. My name is Ivana. I have a little one, well, not so little anymore, 7-year-old, who has a spinal cord injury due to cancer. Since the diagnosis, we've received a lot of help and assistance from organizations and other people. And I really wanted to try to give back to the community. So I've been volunteering at Holland Bloorview, part of the Family Advisory Committee, Quality Committee of the board, Commercialization Council. I also had the opportunity to co-facilitate at University of Toronto for the social work course on disability practice. I'm also board of director for CARD, and they do horse therapy for kids and people with disabilities. And then in my spare time, I work for EA as a development director. And of course, love playing video games. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. So on to my journey, really, which is my son's journey. So as I mentioned, my son, was born, everything was as it should be at that time. But unfortunately, at 3 months and at 6 months, he was diagnosed with cancer. And the cancer was in his spinal cord. And because of that, he ended up being paralyzed from chest down. And everybody's journey is different. I really want to mention that, how everybody experiences sort of that perceived loss, or based on the expectations of what your life is going to be like, what your child's life is going to be like. Their journeys are completely different. And so my situation, I think, and how I handled it and how I took time for self-care is going to be different than yours. And so in this instance, when we, of course, found out about his cancer diagnosis and the spinal cord injury, it was, going from everything being okay to just a sudden slice of, things falling apart. And it was a very quick 180 turnaround of our lives. And so when he initially got diagnosed, there wasn't a lot of time for self-reflection, for self-care. I don't think I was really eating, to be honest. I don't think I was sleeping at all. My priority was, is he going to be okay? How do we make sure that he's okay? We were, of course, inpatient at Sick Kids at the time for, I think it was over 3 months initially. And it was really just, my care, my thoughts and feelings, it was just put to the back. And my experience was with the initial diagnosis that there was a lot of support from people, from family and friends, of course, because of this very tragic thing happening. So there was support coming in from that in terms of food or, offers to take care of the house. And we had a dog, so dog walking. So there was a lot of support that I think later on kind of dwindles in terms of, when it goes from an acute sort of stage to a chronic stage. And so that to me was very helpful because there were certain things I just didn't have to think about and I didn't have capacity to think about. So during this phase, there was a few things that really helped me. One is that, right away I had called my family doctor and I said, I just need help. Like I can't sleep. I don't know what I'm doing. And they were able to connect me to a social worker virtually. And this was before COVID. So it really wasn't that common at the time, who kind of would try to help me talk through my feelings and thoughts when my little one was in the ICU. And it was really hard. You're at this stage, I wasn't accepting things happening and just dealing with that initial reaction, like this can't be my reality. So mental health, of course, was just at the absolute bottom. And so certain things that I found kind of helped was, you'll see a picture here and you'll see some dates, was really just taking it day by day.
Well, once I started focusing more on the day to day, just really trying to be present, thinking of smiles that he gave me, not thinking, what does that mean for the future? The little movements, like his feet move or his toe move. While, when he started talking for the first time again after he was intubated and came out, and just focusing on those little things and how they were heard of the improvements that he was making and how far we've come, and reflecting on those when I had those down moments really helped me that stage. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of time for that self-care. So this inspired romance and finding that support network that can support me within the hospital setting that was really important. There were little moments, just taking a quick break and going for a coffee downstairs, and just walking very slowly to get that coffee. Because it was the rare times where I was just by myself. There wasn't doctors, there wasn't, machines can be that we were worried about what those machines can be. And it was very, very little time for self-care. So I think during that time, really for me, it was helpful focusing on the day-to-day, showing actually it's like little events and how far we come. And again, there were very little limits. Oh, sorry, my voice is cracking. Still hear me? Is that any better now or no?
I can hear you, but it's true. It's a bit crackly.
Oh, sorry.
Not sure what it is.
Yeah.
It was fine in the beginning when you started. Maybe after 1 or 2 minutes, it was cracking. But I felt that I'm the only one who's experiencing. But I want to let me share it later. Then I just felt that I should share. Maybe others are also experiencing that.
Is it any better now? Video perspective.
There we go.
Okay. How am I sounding now? Am I sounding okay? Okay. So, so as I was saying, during this period of time, it was, very difficult to find those moments. Really, it was about finding the moments and the support within the hospital setting as much as I could. So social worker was really helpful for me in having conversations on that, on how they can help me, and focusing on those day-to-days and small improvements were those little moments where I could do self-care. And again, this is the sort of the initial stage as I think of it, where you're just trying to survive. And it's not necessarily a sustainable way to live, but you're just not even thinking about yourself.
Ivana, can I ask you a question here? I'm listening to this and I'm hearing that the social worker was such an integral part in that moment for you. Do you feel like that's a unique experience you had, was accessing a social worker, or do you feel like you had a unique experience with your social worker compared to others?
I think I had a really good social worker. And I think when these situations happen at sick kids where you're inpatient, and the type of story that we had, a social worker is part of the healthcare team. Yeah. And so, we've had 5-6 specialists from different departments. We had nurses, and one of the people on the team was a social worker. I think I'm one of the people that utilizes a social worker to their fullest. So I think it really is about, some people might think of a social worker as somebody that provides resources or is there if you have a question of next steps and being practical, which they were, and she was fantastic in that. But I also really utilized her for that mental and emotional support. And I think a lot of times maybe we don't think of them in that way. And so they were really helpful. And I know, at Holland Bloor Review, there's a social worker, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to utilize social workers in different ways.
Yeah, and that's a resource that they provide to you as part of the circle of care and the care team, and it's just a great resource to have, and people should use them to their fullest, as it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Awesome. So I think we can move on to the next stage. So this is a little bit of a combination of us, leaving the hospital, going home, and the rehabilitation stage, where we really focused on a lot of his recovery. So if anybody here or listening had the experience of being inpatient in the hospital and then being discharged, from our perspective, we just didn't find we had a lot of support. Like, we were sent home with unknown medical needs, what support we're going to have in the community. And it was really difficult to, again, at that initial stage, prioritize any sort of self-care or mental health or physical health, really. And I would say, again, what helped was really being vocal about the support that you're looking for, and continuing to push, having discussions with social workers and doctors, and asking questions about the type of support you can receive in the community. So one of the things we found, again, is, family and friends, you're coming home, lots of support, lots of food. Do you need anything? Ask if you need anything. And again, during this stage, that kind of dwindled down. Like, it was, the first couple of weeks, a lot of support. And then suddenly, on top of taking care of a child with a disability and other medical, needs, you suddenly didn't really know how to cook and how to clean and where you're going to find that time and do errands. Who's going to leave the house? Can he leave the house? Is it safe for him to leave the house? Because he was immunocompromised as well. So I think there was a system failure in a sense, and going from the health the care that you receive in a hospital setting to the care that you receive in a community setting, and how much advocacy and energy you need to come with to have a good standard of care in the community. And I think that mental component really started to get to me here, where everything just seemed like a struggle. Like, to get care that he deserved was the mental load that I didn't even think living in Canada I would require. So, I had to deal with that, with sort of the fear of what comes next. Again, when you were discharged, he was very little. He was about 7-8 months old. And at the time, he was just another baby in a stroller. So, our needs or how it looked didn't look any different than any other child. And so the acceptance of his disability, at least for me, was very gradual. It came in steps of when he got his first wheelchair. Okay, now he's using a wheelchair, a 1.5 years old. He's no longer in a stroller. And any type of additional medical requirement that was considered outside of the norm was another, I want to say, like, mental step back for me, where it just hit me all over again that, this is something that's different. This is something that's going to require more energy, more needs. There's going to be larger barriers. And this was also a time where I struggled with, those realities with the additional medical needs, but also with hope. And so we really pushed hard to do a lot of rehab. And I think part of the way I took care of myself was keeping busy. And keeping busy meant doing physical rehab with him, because I felt like I was being useful, like I was doing something, like I was accomplishing something. And for me, that kind of kept all those fears and other things at bay, because, okay, we're actively doing something. We're going to accomplish something. We're not always going to be in this stage. This is going to get better. It's going to change. And so we, did a lot of rehab in Canada. We did a lot of rehab actually in the US as well. We would go for 3-4 weeks away and did a lot of additional physical therapy. And I found, because of all this engagement, that I found it really hard to disconnect when I was around him. That even, if we were just playing, I was constantly thinking about the next steps, about how we can, continue to improve him, how he can do things differently. And it was just this time of really not fully accepting the spinal cord injury. And I really felt that, that I was sort of a cup that was filled to the top, and it was just one more sort of drop that would take me over the edge, an additional, set of news about his physical health or appointments that was going to take me over that edge. And so again, what really helped was keeping busy, avoiding the reality, and felt like I was accomplishing something. What I later found out really was that this was more for me and less for him. And I think that was something that at the time I felt like I needed, because when you're a parent with a child with disability, you feel responsible in a sense, very responsible for their future and their health and their well-being. And this is something that I felt like I had within my control. Like, if I do a really good job, if we do a lot of physical therapy, he'll be able to walk again and he'll be happy. And I really related to him not being in a wheelchair with him being happy. And we'll talk about sort of that transition later on, but it was something that helped me at the time. And really, at this stage, I found the only way that I could disconnect from him was stepping away. So, leaving the house without him, his father would take care of him. That was the only way I could mentally stop thinking about the next steps and things that we needed to do. And I, again, utilized a social worker at Holland Bloorview to talk about, some of the negative feelings that I was experiencing from this. I really found a close connection to families who had gone through similar things. I connected with people when we traveled for physical therapy in the US. I connected with people on Facebook and other social media. Social media that really helped, with this type of specific spinal cord injury in a pediatric population, because it isn't very common. There's more adults with a spinal cord injury than children. So it started to make me feel less alone, that there was others that have gone through this, and seeing their kids, sometimes older than my son, thriving and using a wheelchair and being happy, really kind of started to, create this shift in my mental load. Just really time at this point. We had that initial phase of, acute stage where it was just panic, no time for myself. we'd gone to this stage where the way that I was dealing with it and the way that I saw my self-care was really trying to help him, recover, and felt like I was being useful, stepping away to sort of decompress and not mentally think about it. And then finding people and other families and other parents that had gone through similar things who could relate, and you could have honest conversations with them about, your fears and your doubts and your hopes. And they could really understand. And so this was a very sort of mixed emotional bag of moments of happiness, seeing that he is improving, and moments of doubt and how is his life going to be, with sprinkled with a little bit of like parent guilt, because that's what we do. We guilt trip ourselves for anything, really.
Can I,
Yeah.
I listen to this and I hear this this thing about stepping away and needing to step away in order to disconnect and get that space for yourself. I can only imagine, being so integrated into his care and into his life, that even stepping away is probably a difficult thing for a lot of people. Leaving that care in the hands of someone else just so you can find that moment for yourself. I mean, did you struggle with that at all? Is there anything that you did to overcome that sort of thing while, in this part of your journey?
And I think, there was two different ways that I would disconnect. So, leaving the house to go to grocery store, I had my husband. He was very, I knew he was in safe hands. But, it was hard to, again, go on a date night, right? And who takes care of our son? Because now you're throwing a third person in there that may or may not understand all the complexity of his care. And I think it took a while for us to understand, one, the complexity and the specifics of his disability, so that we could properly communicate his needs to others. So it wasn't something that as soon as we came home, I felt comfortable leaving, because I don't know the things to look out for if something is wrong. So I think the first step for me was really understanding, things that could go wrong or things to look out for, so that I could communicate it to other people. So that was step one. After that, it was really shared care. So having, family come over while you're here and having them interact with him. And so slowly it's almost like, getting further and further away a little bit, and with the door closed, and then outside of the house, and then in the car. So, and then longer and longer periods of time. So I think it was just a really slow progression. I do want to say that at no point was I ever 100% certain, right? So I think I learned to live with some doubt and some uncertainty when I left the house, knowing that it's I don't want to say almost like my problem, but it's me, right? It's not a reflection of the people that are staying with him and my trust in them. It was more a reflection of my doubt and my, connection to him. That wasn't potentially reflective of reality of him being safe with other people. And so I would leave with that understanding that there's going to be moments where I'm leaving. I've done everything to make sure that he's safe. Even if I had this doubt, it's okay. Like, I can't always be with him. It's not good for him. It's not good for me. And so at a certain point, I've done everything that I can. And now I just need to close that door. So I think it was a very slow progress. Yeah. And, it helped when he first had his injury, he wasn't verbal. He was just a baby. So as he's gotten older in his situation, he was able to verbally communicate things and understand more of his own body. And so now it's a different ball game, because he can say this, I don't feel comfortable with this. This is happening. And he can tell you what happens when you come home. So I think that for us was also a big change as well.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think we can move on to the next slide. So acceptance. So I will say this is sort of where we are now. We talked a lot about how there was a really big focus for me in being active in his rehab and getting for him to be as independent and as active and as much recovery as he possibly can. And all my energy and focus being on that. And that's what kept me sane. I was busy. And then I attended a webinar, and they started talking about children and this difference between, happiness and being happy in life and disability. And it really opened my eyes that I was trying to, have him recover as much as he can, more so for potentially for me because of my feelings and my guilt than it was for him. And the things that he could have potentially been missing, or how he could have started feeling about himself because of this push for physical therapy. Like if mom is always saying you need to improve, you need to continue to get, more movement or improvement, how is he going to feel about himself and his own self-confidence if this is our main goal? And so it just was this huge shift for me where we went from like, holy cow, walking is just, it's walking, right? Like it's, how do we make his life as happy as it possibly can be? And so this was a huge shift in me mentally because it came as an acceptance of his disability, which was not going to be a blocker to his happiness, to his activities, to his life. And really just accepting that, like, okay, now we can move on. Now we can almost like restart our life. Like this isn't the main focus of our life any longer. And of course, we still have emergency appointments. We still have health issues that we have to deal with. And to be honest, every time I go into Sick Kids ER, it just comes back. And that's something that I tried to deal with. But this was a huge step forward. And there was a few things here that really helped. One is that we found a lot of organizations that, he can participate in to do different activities. So, he started doing basketball, sledge hockey, all kind like robotics and Lego and all kinds of different things, which really brought, allowed him to feel happy and participate and like he can do things and build his self-confidence. The other thing that really helped for us is that we started being more comfortable with respite and having other people come and help him with us. So I know we're going to share some resources later. SSAH, which is Special Services at Home, and Enhanced Respite is funding that you can apply for. There is a long wait list that can help you, fund some of the special needs camps and some of the respite at home as well. We did find some camps that he goes to that can, provide assistance for him. So like Easter Seals, we went for a family camp, and it was just amazing to see him being in a world that's inclusive. He's gone to Kayla's Children's Center 10 nights at a different camp where there were, nurses and doctors there. And it was terrifying and amazing at the same time. And he loved it. You go to Holland Bloorview camp. So all these moments where we've experienced, him being away from us in a safe place where he comes back and just has an amazing time. It's a win-win for us because I get to decompress. I get time to focus on myself, and he gets to, experience this whole new world without me and build his confidence. So that is, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Oh, no, that's great. I just want to, I want to make sure that Gunjan has enough time to tell her story as well.
Oh, yes, sorry. So I will be done very soon. I think we started a little bit late and then technical issues.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's just, it's finding everybody's journey is different. So what worked for me may not work for you, but and if you don't have that support network, and you're always just so focused on the medical, it's hard to think about self-care. But in the long term, it's not sustainable. So I think trying to reach out to organizations to figure out how you can support your child, trying to find those little moments and mindful moments where you can take for yourself, finding like the one thing that you can do for yourself during this time, I think are all really important. And I think depending on where you are in your journey, it's a fluid state. Taking care of yourself is not, it's always going to be 100%. If there's an emergency, if something is, if COVID comes along, those things are going to take, a backseat, but always being able to come back and find some type of balance is important.
Right. Thank you, Ivana. I mean, there's some really important takeaways in there. I think you summarized it well at the end, but some other things that stand out to me is the mind share of you need the space in order to create space for yourself. Some of the things up front earlier in the journey about finding the resources and being left on your own when you came back into the community, and it's not on any one parent to deal with that. I mean, I think as a community, as an ecosystem supporting this, we all need to get together and try to create those resources that are at a glance and can create space for the parents, so they're not on their own and they don't have to go about organizing it all themselves or things of that nature, is also something that I'm going to take away from this and see if something that Avika can help with as well. Okay, Gunjan, I'll let you tell your story, introduce yourself, and take us through your journey, please.
Thank you, Ivana, first of all, for sharing your story. I love listening it, and I love the pictures of your son. Beautiful pictures. Thank you. And my name is Gunjan, and I'm a mother of an amazing, lovely boy who has autism. My son is 14 years old, and I live in Toronto. I'm a proud immigrant to Canada, so I'm very thankful to the land I'm sitting on now. Very, very thankful for the blessings. And I'm a family leader, family mentor, family faculty at Holland Bellevue Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. I'm also a family partner with Autism Speaks, Autism Care Network, and part of their many, many committees and research studies. I'm also a PFAC member with Autism Ontario Health, and very, very passionate to share my lived experience so that we can have some improvement in the quality of lives of many, many families like us. So thank you for this amazing opportunity, Adam and Paul, and thank you to Ivana for being my co-facilitator today. Thank you, and thank you to the participants for joining us today. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you.
Before I move on, I just want to add one thing. You also received a national award just last week from the Ministry of Health. I think that's amazing for all your contributions to the community and helping others in your similar situation.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. Can I have the next slide? Thank you so much. So back in 2008, my husband and I were preparing to welcome our first baby. You see a beautiful tiny picture of my son in the middle on the screen. And we're eagerly waiting and counting the days leading up to the magical date of April 14, 2008. We had just moved to a new town in US and were extremely excited about our new beginnings. And it was still mid-January. There was no time, and we thought there was a time, but there was no time. And we went about making our dreamy welcome plan to welcome our first baby, and very patiently. Well, we had some time, or so we thought, until life happened in its own mysterious ways. And life did not have time. On a January 29th evening routine checkup, I went to the doctor, and the doctor broke a shattering news to me. The baby had to be delivered immediately, and I had preeclampsia. And two of us had to be separated from each other to save each other. My husband was also traveling at that time, and I was by my own with some family friend. And my heart and my mind raced and only aggravated my blood pressure. I went to the hospital, I got admitted there, and as I said, life did not have time. So induced by C-section, my little boy came to this beautiful world in the early hours of January 30 at 4 a.m. in the morning. At 29 weeks, weighing only 927 grams. I vaguely remember having a glimpse of him before he was taken immediately to the NICU under a tag named Baby Boy Seth. That was the name given to him at the hospital, Baby Boy Seth. We did not have a name for him yet. I never felt so alone because I was all by myself. My parents, my siblings, everyone was back home, and my husband was also traveling. So I was all by myself. So fortunately, my husband came in the afternoon of January 30th, and we knew all plans had to be rewritten again. There began Ajay's ordeal as a NICU baby. He was in intensive care NICU for almost 3 months and had 3 blood transfusions and few surgeries while his stay at NICU. And later in his life, he was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, asthma, and I don't know what more discoveries I have to make in the near future in this amazing journey with my son and husband. So our journey right from the day my son was discharged from the hospital on an apnea monitor is full of struggles, full of challenges, and he has struggled immensely because of his needs. We started his early intervention very, very early, and this is because of his prematurity. And Ajay needs a lot of support in terms of his fine motor delays, gross motor delays, language delays, and many other needs. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So Ajay is very, very sensitive to sounds. He struggles with emotional regulation. He's not cognizant of safety. He cannot focus much. Anxiety is always bothering him throughout the day. He always struggles with worries and anxieties and does have sleeping challenges from birth. And due to COVID, he does have to be very mindful of social distancing too. So from the time Ajay was born till he turned 10, he never slept in a row for 10 hours in a day, and he used to wake up after every 2 to 3 hours every night. And due to that, I never slept for maybe 8 hours in one row for 10 years. So I was sleep deprived for many, many years, and it really hit my mental health, my well-being, my married life, my family's well-being, and severe burnout and fatigue. He's a very happy boy, loves camping, going out, not making friends, but being with people all around him and cheering for people, building Legos and traveling to different places. And that's his goal every week, that he likes to go out and explore something adventurous with his family. I experienced a lot of burnout due to this process of supporting his needs. It's a beautiful journey, amazing journey, and a journey full of learning experience for me. But parenting can be very, very stressful under the best of the circumstances. But for moms and dads who have children with developmental challenges and mental health challenges, they often have to deal with strain of different magnitudes all the time. We sit on a roller coaster every day. We experience mixed emotions every day. And caring for a child, for a special needs child, is a full-time job. And it becomes very, very overwhelming when you have no one to support you and help you to meet your own needs, your well-being, your mental health. And it's not easy to get those supports and resources to meet those needs. So, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So what makes me feel present? What gives me energy? What gives me a sense of being present, feeling energized during this process is me on time. And I was unable to find this me on time for many, many, many years. Maybe I think till Ajay turned 13. And now he's 14 and a half. I did not even had the chance to think about that because I was missing that self-reflection piece of recognizing and meeting those self-care needs for myself. But during this process, I felt that power naps, even if for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, are very powerful to make me feel energized and go back to work to support his needs. I find mindfulness, maybe just for a couple of minutes throughout the day, if it's possible, to be very helpful to me to support my mental health. It's not easy to find these resources, and even if you have resources, you don't have the time to do all this. Then who is going to help me? And recently, like Ivana mentioned, she attended a webinar. Last week, I went to a conference at Ottawa where I received my award. I met Dr. Brian Goldman. He's very famous on Twitter. So he said something amazing about the power of teamwork, and that is a magic in teamwork. And teamwork helped me also as a mother to support my own self care, my own mental health. I discovered during this process that it takes a village to raise a child with special needs. I cannot raise him by my own. If I'm going to raise him by my own, I'm going to maybe reach to a break point that I will collapse one day. Then what I can do in that situation? I can only create a group of amazing partners with me who have deep compassion, authenticity, and shared goals that can help me to make this work possible to support my self-care and my son's needs, and able to support my son's need. And during this process, I found some respite workers who became a part of my team. I found some amazing people in the system, in the neighborhood, in the community who are ready to help me to just give me some moments of respite so that I feel refreshed and energized. I even did not feel shy to ask for help from my son's support workers at school to help me to support my son's need. But it's a process, and there are many obstacles in finding that team. It's not easy to get that. You really have to think, and there is a need of self reflection, how I can make it possible, where I can go to ask for help. And like Ivana mentioned, I did have a social worker. But sadly, in my journey, what happened, social worker helped me more in terms of finding funding and programs for my son, rather than focusing more on one-to-one conversations with me about the need of respite and self-care for me, which actually I found many, many years later that there is so much need to have self-care for myself. What helps me in my experience is building a team of people who care for you and who have shared goals like you. And it's a process, it's not magic, but it's going to definitely work well for you and for your family. And there is a deep strength in building the team. So I may not say much about the team, but I'm very curious to know from anyone in the group who have some questions from me. You have some curiosity to know how I made it possible. And am I really, or are you really curious about anything else in my journey? Just curious to know.
Well, for me, it's really interesting to hear the difference in experience with social workers and how that sounds like it can be such an important part of this journey and finding ways to deal with it, and finding that space for yourself and enabling yourself to do that. I think you, given that, Gunjan, like, do you feel like you could have worked differently with the social worker? I mean, do you think this is more of who you're with or how you perceive them? I mean, what can you tell people out there who are working with social workers right now and may not be experiencing the same success that Ivana was able to speak to?
So this is a great question. So being honest with you, and I tell you what, every professional is different. Every family's needs are different, and every family experiences different challenges and barriers and struggles. Their needs are unique, and me being an immigrant have no idea about the healthcare system. So I had my own biases, my cultural barriers, or maybe other barriers that did not make me undergo that process. But I also talk about the healthcare professional who talked to me, in this case, specifically the social worker. Social worker did share with me that this is a funding form available for you. Did she tell me about respite available? Did she have a deep conversation with me about how I can benefit from respite or self-care? I think that was missing. So what we need is a strong foundation of deep listening in our daily conversations with our healthcare professionals, the people I interact with we interact with in our health healthcare team. Deep listening and just acknowledging what is required by that family in that moment, in that stage, is very vital. And sometimes it is missing, and missing because of many reasons, missing because of many barriers that have to still discover. But I really encourage that every healthcare professional should make an attempt to listen deeply and try to bridge those gaps and barriers that their clients are experiencing.
That's great.
It's not easy to do that. It's not easy to do that. I also co-teach healthcare workers. I do that. And sometimes it's not easy to bridge that. It's a process for them. Sometimes experience as a teacher, and we all are unique humans. We take things at our own level. We may be less curious than others, but we are all different and unique. And before I end, I just want to share some conclusion that raising a child with special need is very exhausting and has even become more challenging due to COVID-19. When children with special needs have the support and services they need to succeed in life, it has an incredibly positive impact on caregivers' emotional and mental health and well-being. Parents of children with special needs would benefit immensely from self-care, and in this context, I should call respite. Every family, every parent's needs are unique. They are all unique. So self-care looks different for each one of us, like Ivana mentioned. My self-care may look different from Ivana's. So it's just we have to respect that and create that space for each one of us. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it is helpful to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. I think this is a topic that's really hard for people to appreciate unless you've gone through it. So I think the people who are also watching this webinar right now, or the recording webinar, will understand, the importance of what you're saying. So along with that, you've given me some links to resources. I definitely want to get that out there. Aside from that, we also have other options of asking questions or contacting us, or if you need something particular, a piece of technology, or you have questions about financing or whatever question you have, please send it to Ivika. At ivika.io, you'll find a contact form. And the bottom right of every page, there's a suggestion form. You can also use that to get in contact with us. And ask us about any resources that you'd like to see. If there's a webinar that you'd like to see, if there's a question you have for Ivana or Gunjan, please send it to us, and we'll try and get an answer to you as quickly as possible. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions right now, please do add them to the question and answer section. There's a Q&A feature in Zoom, and you can write your questions there. And while we do that, I'd love to show a little video of our sponsor. We mentioned Control Bionics. They make communication equipment for people with severe disabilities that leave them unable to speak. And so I'm just going to play a little video here while we wait for some questions.
Meet the NeuroNode Trilogy, the latest assistive communication device from Control Bionics. The Trilogy is a Windows-based solution for those living with paralysis and loss of speech due to conditions like cerebral palsy, SMA, TBI, spinal cord injury, or ALS-MND. This device combines 3 access methods: touch control, eye control, and NeuroNode 3.0 control. Putting these access methods together allows for the fastest, most efficient communication speed, while simultaneously reducing user fatigue. Not only does this solution provide a voice for the voiceless, but it also provides environmental control and native computer control. The 3-in-1 solution relieves the pressure of getting the right device for right now and provides a solution for the present and future. As a user's condition changes due to a progressive illness or daily fatigue, the NeuroNode Trilogy can adapt to that person's abilities using their preferred access method. The Trilogy is also backed by our industry-leading customer support. Contact us anytime, day or night, and our team will be there. There are many funding options available for the NeuroNode Trilogy, including funding support through Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, the Veterans Administration, and various departments of education. Visit our website at www.controlbionics.com to learn more, or give us a call at 513-453-4848 to schedule an assessment with your local representative.
So big thank you again to Control Bionics. They sponsor these types of webinars. And that really helps, get the word out about things like this. They've sponsored, for example, advocating for your child when you're in appointments with doctors. How do you stand up for what your child needs? And there's a great webinar about that. Of course, today Ivona and Gunjan helped us by walking us through this. Now, how do you take a moment for yourself as a parent with a child with disabilities? We've done sessions on financial planning for your child. And I think, these topics is the kind of information that sometimes is hard to find. And it's important that we share this with the community. And so thank you, Control Bionics, for making that possible.
There is a question in the Q&A that I'd like to answer.
Yeah.
If that works now, Paul.
Yeah.
So the question is just around balancing paid work and care needs. And I'd say that at least with my son's case, for the first 4 years, I was unable to work because we couldn't find daycare that supported him. Only when he ended up starting school was when I was able to go back into work. And I think for me, I'm lucky that I can work from home. And so it's really created a lot of flexibility around when I can finish my work. And to be honest, I have been very honest during my interviews in terms of, it comes, I think, naturally around requirements. And I've never really seemed to have any issues with employers. If I take a day off here or day off there for doctor's appointments, it's more around getting the work done. So I've been lucky, and I've worked for larger organizations that I think are more inclusive now than they were before. I found smaller organizations or startups can be harder because you have more responsibilities, and sometimes their expectations of your work-life balance are different. And so I think it's just a matter of, finding what works for you. Is it something that you can do from home that gives you that flexibility? That really worked for us. During COVID, we relied on a lot of support from Lynn, which I forgot their name, they've changed now, but they were able to provide somebody to come in and watch our son for like 4 hours a day. We used our SSH funding, our enhanced respite funding, to have somebody come in and watch him. But I think for us, the biggest thing really was when he started school is when I was able to go back to work. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have, if we had to pay for care full time, it wouldn't have made sense financially, really, for me to go back to work and have somebody support him full time. So really going back to work was the big thing. And then working from home and having the flexibility of, you need to get X done, but is it at 9? Is it at 3? Is it at 10 o'clock at night? It really doesn't matter as long as it gets done. So I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm wondering, Gunjan, do you have anything to add? Do you have experience with this?
I cannot add much about this, but I will really share my insights in terms of my experience as a caregiver in this context to some extent. I can simply say that this is, you are an expert of your own family needs and your child's need, and you know what works best in your situation. And during this process of balancing, I think, do not ignore your own self-care needs. Be kind to yourself. And I think it's a process of self-reflection that you need to go through, maybe very often during this journey, that what is the right balance. And you have to decide, is this the right step to take now or not, or maybe do it later? So I may not be able to put myself in your shoes because it's your situation. But as a mother of a child who has gone through this journey for almost more than 14 and 15 years almost, I can simply say that be kind to yourself and decide what works best for you and your family.
Great. Thank you so much, Gunjan. I have a question as well, and I kind of been thinking about this the whole webinar. I can imagine it's hard to have that moment where you realize, oh, I really need to take care of myself. Was there a specific moment that you realized, hey, listen, I'm going the wrong way. I need to take a moment for myself. Gunjan, you seem ready to answer.
Yes. It well resonates with me. I'm very curious to know from Ivana also. So, being very authentic. I ignored my self-care for many, many years. I knew that it is required, but I ignored it as I had no time to think about it. I was just busy with my son's need and just supporting his needs all the time. And almost maybe 1 year back, I got very sick, very, very sick. And due to that sickness, I had phobias and I realized, no, I cannot take it like this. I really have to take care of my health and build on my self-care. And I really created a team of people that I shared in my story that I need this team of healthcare professional, healthcare worker, or any respite worker so that I have some moments of respite and self-care for myself. And it's my advice to every parent in this amazing planet that please, please do not ignore your self-care health. Once you will go through the stage I have gone through, it will not be easy to come out of that phobia, that pain. So be kind and take your self-care as a priority.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a very important message. Take self-care as a priority. It's like when you're on an airplane and they give you that message saying, please put on your own mask before you put on your child's mask. It's kind of like you can't really help the people around you unless you're in a position to be able to help them, right? That's very interesting.
One moment.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, you were on mute.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, for me, it never has been one moment. It's a lot of moments. And I think I've learned to recognize when I'm not taking care of myself and to action on it and to take some time. What's really helped for me is the good enough concept where, I not everything's going to be perfect. Not everything needs to be perfect. And I've come to accept that certain things are just, it's good enough and I can move on. And so be it, the physical therapy that we do, be it at my work, be it, going to the gym, like everything is good enough. But that way I get to fit in more because I'm not trying to get 100% out of something. And I always take sort of like these spot checks of how am I doing today? How am I doing this week? Because I think in a certain sense, you have to be a little selfish because like you mentioned, it's the airplane analogy all over again. If you're not, kids can sense it. If you're not doing well, if, you're not okay, they can feel that. And to a certain extent, I don't think it's sustainable for you to be the only person they can rely on. Because again, if something happens to you, what's going to happen to them? So I always see it, me taking care of myself is me, creating independence for him, me being better for him as well. So these little moments and sort of this good enough concept of, yeah, I'm kind of okay with not everything being great and perfect. And it's just sort of this life that I live.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ivana. That was great. I think we're going to leave it here unless there are any other questions. I just want to take another moment to thank you guys so much. I know you both have a lot on your plate, of course, taking care of the children, but also all the work you do in the community, volunteering, being working professionals, getting awards, national awards. So thank you so much for taking this hour to spend with us and explaining your journey and what has helped you along your way. For anyone watching the recording of this webinar, please feel free to send us questions. you can send them to info@evica.io or go to evica.io and find one of our contact forms. And we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. So one more thank you to Ivona and Gunjan. You've been wonderful, so great.
And thank you to Adam, Paul, Ivica, and amazing participants today for listening to our stories and experiences. We are very grateful for this brave space.
Thank you, Gunjan, and have a nice day. Bye-bye, everyone.